This week on the Powell Not Found podcast, we're talking about the movie Wicked. Here we go.
I'm gonna tell you a story about a girl who loves gin. A national pandemic seized her birthday celebration. Although she knew it was coming, we tried not to tell her. She brewed some Irish breakfast tea. She knew her birthday was getting corona.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 46 of the Powell Not Found podcast. I am your host, Mark Powell, for the week of December 7th. That is a Saturday. And this weekend, we are talking about the movie that has been singing its song. It's been defying gravity. It is very, very popular, and that is the movie Wicked. I got a chance to see last night, so let's talk about it. If you've been living under a rock, you might not have noticed that Wicked has come, released on November 22nd, and it's taken over all movie theater experiences. You can't get a seat to this show because it's filled up. Apparently, it was so successful that there were theaters that had to tell people to stop singing along with the movie track because it was that much of a hit. I can't even think of a movie musical that has come and rocked the cinema this much. Les Mis, maybe, with Anne Hathaway, possibly, but Wicked has come, it has landed, and I got the opportunity last night to see it. Now, in reviewing this part one, because they've already reviewed the director, John Chu, who is also kind of responsible for Crazy Rich Asians. He revealed that he was going to split this movie up into two parts. So part one is this Christmas, part two is next Christmas. By 2026, we are all going to be Wizard of Oz'd out. But for now, I can tell you right up front, because that it was a great, punchy, fun experience to gonna go see. I don't think that's going to be a hot take by any stretch of the means. I think people understand and have a realization that this movie is fantastic. I don't think I'm going to be shocking anybody by saying that I really enjoyed it. I had not seen it. I had not seen Wicked. I worked in Broadway ticketing for a long, long time and didn't get the opportunity to see the show. Generally, how it goes is that when you sell tickets, they want you to kind of see the shows. But Wicked, being so big even on Broadway, and this is 10 years ago now, it didn't need any help. There were so many people going to see the show day in, day out, day in, day out. It is popular beyond popular. So I didn't get to see it because I didn't really have the money to throw down $600, $700 a seat, when it gets to that kind of ridiculous level that like Book of Mormon has gotten to, that Hamilton has gotten to, where people are trading tickets on the street and scalping and going crazy like that. So it was a big kind of blind spot in my Broadway knowledge. But last night, that kind of got filled up. It was a great, punchy movie. Ariana Grande, who plays Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, and Cynthia Erivo, who plays the Alphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West. They do a great job playing off of each other. Their vocals are simply amazing. There is a note at the end of Defying Gravity, which is the song that kind of closes out the movie, that is unreal. It kind of moves you. So their vocal performances are absolutely stunning. Ariana Grande, I think, does a better job than she has any right to do. She plays the character in a such cartoonish and caricature way that it kind of reminds you of the original Wizard of Oz and how cartoonish it was if you actually rewatch that show. They do a good job also with the production. They back the actors with almost a comic book like feel. So you hear sound effects kind of accompanying their movements and their choices that they're making on screen. The songs, I don't think anybody's going to be very, very surprised that the songs are great. There's one song particularly on loathing each other that I thought was actually very well written and causes you to laugh pretty regularly throughout the lyrics if you can catch them. And also one of the things that stood out to me, which is not necessarily always true with musicals like this, is that I could understand everything. It was mixed really, really well. And I say that having mentioned Les Mis earlier in the discussion here, that is one musical that it's very, very hard to pick out all the things that are going. Not only is everyone singing all the time because it's an operetta, but it's hard to kind of pick up the plot. In this particular movie, if you're weary about going to see a musical, if you haven't seen that many musicals, you can keep the thread going in this movie. You're not going to have any hard time. It's not singing at you all the time. It is a proper musical. So they do a good job keeping it articulate throughout the entire thing, and really choosing the transitions to go into each song is really smooth and almost like butter. There's not some hard break or anything like that where you see in some musicals where people just start singing and you're kind of caught off guard a little bit. They do a really good job painting and going in and out of songs really easily. The production value in terms of the set pieces is remarkable. It really makes you feel like you're seeing Oz for the first time. Everybody has, I think because they've seen The Wizard of Oz, and The Wizard of Oz is so ingrained in our culture, we have an understanding of what that place looks like and what they were trying to convey in the original film in 1939, what it should have looked like. They did a great job translating not only the feel and the energy of that place and putting it into a modern context, but also the color, right? The Wizard of Oz was a showpiece about Technicolor. And so if you go back and watch the original movie, which I highly suggest you do, because if you've forgotten, because it's been a long time since you've watched the original movie, go watch the movie on I think it's on Max right now, because you'll see things that you haven't seen before, because it usually is edited for television. And at least growing up for me, I watched it on television and I was like, I didn't even know this part existed in the movie. But The Wizard of Oz was a showpiece for color, for taking a black and white movie and translating it into the wonderful, colorful Oz that you see. This movie does the same thing. There is something to see on every single frame. There is something striking and visually cohesive too, which is kind of hard to do with all those colors, but there's something always happening, and you can kind of see the movie as it keeps on going, and maybe this is a conscious choice and maybe it's not, but it feels like it gets more colorful as it keeps on going. And when things are brighter, the colors seem to pop a little bit more. When things are darker, they seem to kind of dampen a little bit more. It's really remarkable. It's a really cool throwback to a film that basically was known for its expose of color. It is, the plot by the numbers is one that we've seen before in a thousand different pieces. It's basically not appreciating people because of their differences, whether it be who they are, the choices they make, or the things that they can't control. In this case, it's Alphaba being green, right? It's a story that's been told 1,000 times before. They do a really good job also telling that plot of her life with the way that she's been discriminated against, also kind of alongside this movement against the animals that are kind of ingratiated in Oz, right? It does kind of paint the land of Oz in a very, very different light. If you've watched the original movie, Oz is a strange place in general, right? I don't think you understand that until you actually watch the old movie back through. But this movie talks about how sheltered and about how non-accepting the people of Oz are. And if you go back and watch the original movie, you start kind of realizing that Oz is not a perfect place by any stretch of the means. I mean, if you remember, Dorothy comes in, she crushes someone with a house. The entire town starts singing. By the way, a pretty prepared number. The Lollipop Guild, honors her in a private dance and number. The mayor produces documents that clearly they had at the ready. I mean, paperwork takes a long time to produce, and then they send her on a journey to get back home, where she meets a man, employed as a scarecrow, the Tin Man, and a lion who's patrolling the woods. There's flying monkeys everywhere, which are used as armed guards. I mean, it's not a nice place, Oz. It's a very, very strange and bizarre fever dream. What Wicked does is that it kind of exposes some of the faults that they have, right? Like there's this kind of hatred, and in the beginning of the film, you see them lighting a torch because the Wicked Witch of the West is dead. Celebrating that this era of oppression, if you will, is over. And then they kind of tell you in the beginning of the film that was she always born wicked, and that kind of lets the musical kind of start, if you will. A lot of allusions throughout the movie are referencing The Wizard of Oz. It's actually one of those movies that I feel like you can go back to time and time again and check out, and probably see more and more things each time upon each viewing. It is a really, really good film. The only criticism I will say of the film itself is probably the fact that you do feel a feeling of being left hanging a little bit because it's split into two parts. And I realize that movies do this all the time. I feel like it really got set off by Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. There's probably no reason that film should have been two parts. We see it in television series all the time. Breaking Bad split its final season into two parts. I think The Walking Dead did the same thing. The Hobbit had 3 parts, which I think was a mistake in retrospect. A lot of people were like, there's no reason that book, the shortest book of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, had to be 9 hours long. But this is the trend that it's going. They say, according to the director did say that they split it into 2 parts so they could accurately develop the characters' arcs without feeling like it was rushed, and but which is great, which is the artistic thing to say. It's the correct thing to say to the public. Do I think it's a little bit of a money grab? Of course I do. If you have 2 movies in 2 straight years come out, you're going to make more money. It's going to be more of a smash. And if part 2 is anything like part 1, which you would almost imagine it would probably be even bigger, because of all the hype that part 1 is creating right now, it would be only beneficial for them to split it into 2 parts. But you are kind of left hanging as the viewer because you want resolution. That's the one thing you're not going to get with this film, is resolution. We know what happens at the end of this journey anyways. They do kind of hint at it in the beginning of the film. It's clearly delineated in The Wizard of Oz what happens. We know she meets her demise at some point. Spoiler alert, but that movie's been out for almost 100 years. But you don't feel any kind of, you feel wanting, you're left feeling wanting for more, which is a great testament to the filmmaking and the production value and the actual movie itself. But man, you want that thing to finish, and you want to get to a point where you know what happens. Having to wait another year, that's a little bit disappointing. And so I think that because it's so good, you're left a little bit upset that you've really watched half of a movie. And in that case, you start to wonder if it was really that long, if it felt like it was needed to be that developed. Could you not have made this a television series at some point so you have all the time in the world? But, I know that's, scheduling and commitments and trying to get who you want. You don't always have the luxury or the time to develop something as long as it's a television series, but it is something to think about. Additionally, the one thing that's funny about this movie as well is its casting is great. Everyone can sing. Everyone really knocks it out of the park that way. But Ariana Grande is almost not recognizable as Ariana Grande. She really does such a good job falling into the character. Cynthia Erivo does the same thing. Very, very good job. You don't necessarily, I don't think, have any kind of comparison problem with comparing them and their performances to ones made by Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel. There was I hadn't seen the original, so I had nothing kind of to base it off of, but I think they do a very, very good job holding these characters up as their own and putting their own kind of creative spin on it for sure. Later on in the movie, Michelle Yeoh is in it as kind of like the head director of the wizardry school shiz that they're kind of going to, or the head wizard, a head witch, whatever you want to call her. She, because of her recent success in Everything Everywhere All at Once, whatever that movie was called, it tends to kind of take you out of it just a little bit. The same way certain people's popularity outside of the movie can just kind of jar you. And nothing about this was more prevalent than seeing the Wizard of Oz played by Jeff Goldblum. That is a very interesting choice. One that I feel like was probably made on a meeting somewhere going, what would be a good, who kind of acts like the Wizard of Oz in real life? Jeff Goldblum. Peter Dinklage also as the professor, the goat professor, the greatest of all time goat professor, who his voice is so recognizable at this point because of Game of Thrones, because of the other roles that Peter Dinklage has been in and he's been around, that it's hard not on hearing Peter Dinklage. In that particular case, there may have been, reason to try an accent, anything to kind of disguise his voice more than it was, because it just shines straight through the character. He does a good job playing the character. The acting job is not bad, but it as an audience member, seeing these familiar faces takes you out of the story a little bit. Again, I keep on using this example, but if you ever watch the movie 12 Years a Slave and you see Brad Pitt come in about an hour and a half through, you have a hard time separating that that's a character in a movie and not just Brad Pitt in 1863. It's a weird comparison, I know, but it's just something that it's a problem that maybe it should have addressed a little bit more with maybe people who are a little bit more unknown than some of these people. But again, devil's advocate, you want these people to bring people to the theater, right? And who's to say that if you picked every kind of unknown Broadway actor who could perform just as well, would people be flocking to it in the same way? So go see this film. It's a great film. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the show there. That, again, is my review of the movie Wicked. We'll be back next week. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Golden at Bat rule that has been flown around, this week, which was a crazy kind of rule. And hopefully next week there'll be more baseball news, because next week is winter meetings. And we've already seen Clay Holmes sign. We've already seen Luis Severino sign. We've already seen a lot of baseball news kind of floating. But I wanted to see if we can wait one more week to see if the Soto news will drop, and then we'll talk about it as we head into the Christmas break. Again, I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. Go ahead and leave, rate, review the show. And go find us on YouTube. Go find us on TikTok before TikTok is banned. And go see us on Instagram. And we're on all the socials. Go have a good month and happy shopping. And have a good Christmas. We'll see you guys later.
1, 2.